you are going to survive. If you're in the third class, I'm sorry. Another thing as well is to look to the sex of the passengers. So if you are a female, so I guess I have to do exactly the same thing to make the statement. So it's very easy. So we want to have that as a percentage. So how much people. So we can see that the female, survived more than the male because at the past, I have seen Titanic anyways. So, right? I mean, Leonardo died at the end because, charming. So anyway, so this is a way to extract a lot of information, and here you already, what you could already extract as a useful information is that, for example, the sex and also the class are useful information to do your model at the end. If you want to make predictions, those two features will be really important for your model. And then we can talk about the ages, because if you are, for example, less than 18, so you are a child, I mean, you are more likely to survive because this is, I mean, those are the ones that we want to save first, right? Yeah, so I'll let you continue with that and then we come back. I will try to make some predictions and submission at the end. And carry on. Thanks.
You just let me know. Yeah, sure.
Yes, please.
So it's something also in your life. I spend all this time getting this cleaning your 80%, right? I'm cleaning it up. I get a little bit of reward. It's a big effort. Bah, j'ai commencé, c'est bien.
J'ai fait un tri. Je venais aussi.
Moi, je vois pas. I was a molecular biologist. Then I came here and started I think so too, but maybe that's because this but then I worked in this, so I was in oh no, I was in the research. Oh no, this is where I had a lot of context. One foot, this is right. The nutrition. But I was in the message too.
And at some point what I saw was
Actually, it's a research institute.
I mean, we can talk about that. So now,
yeah, well, okay.
You know, with a little bit too much, and then it was a bit of that kick all the bags out, and all the farmers out, all the pesticides. So half of the company they could apply for it, and they left to work. Left to work in small businesses. You should work in small companies. That's why these people don't pick up this.
Yeah, except for this is pretty big. All the pharma are
simplified image.
but I think for me, this is less
Buy water.
yeah, water is one part that's bad.
All the
They cannot buy it also because people are ready to sell it. That's a bit all really good for me on them.
But the thing is, they have an eye on consciousness. Like, understand they had new ones that they until they started being like some things that help. And it's been a long time. And now they're trying to make it different diversion. And now magic, yes.
it's minus 0 to like now it's 10 baby is like between 0 and 5. The child, students, then you close then we have
toi c'est juste comme lui il a réussi à faire son machin.
There's a lot of stuff which you cannot last week.
Oh, the noodles, the Maggi noodles.
I bring them from India State, but big packets.
Yeah. So, yeah, they do have naughty side, but they also have unlike a lot of so, I mean, we mostly their own because they want to try and use it with lenses if they can, rather than trying to
so it's quite interesting to see that the babies, like there's 50-50 child, how many survive? So 80%, more than 70% survive. Here, like,
so,
for the rest
anyway, yeah, no, I mean, if it works out, maybe your students, yeah, well, we'll see. I think we'll be in touch.
Right,
Yeah,
stuff.
Certainly, present for people to know when it's very good because people that want
so my biggest problem will be getting
Yeah, just do it.
people to start contributing data sets, and that's why I'm thinking going to schools, if I even have to take online courses, and they're making data, they can put it up. I mean, my biggest thing is to get to contribute. I can work on
old data they don't use anymore, so they might be able to, or they might get ready to sell it.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Well, they have to start thinking this is what this said in 6 months. It's hardest for them to think, I can let go of this.
He's running forest, they don't even know what to do with it, but maybe we should do that.
They might be able to survive this a bit longer and market and they might.
Yeah, exactly.
People try to try to make money.
Running forest is easy.
Yeah, partly because, you know, they
I know.
need new ways to make money, and this would be new. They have a lot of stuff that's sitting there. But they don't know how to. But they don't know how to sell it now by giving it away. Well, of course it's it's hard though, it's like turning the Titanic.
You have to give them what is necessary.
Yeah, exactly.
If we manage to do that, then you should also the company. So that's what we are aiming for. We have a lot of small startups in this business, and now we have
That's it. So the thing is, yes, to get through that, so people understand. But the thing is, they all are doing certain things where they're looking to so there is some thinking around this, but it's not certainly it's not easy because they have so many lawyers. Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And because they don't have to sell it for a lot of money, because people, it's like selling. You know, or you can sell it. Well, it's not like run out of a product. But for instance, if somebody, if you're a stupid person, why? I mean, they could buy a share of somebody else. But that's yeah. But it can happen. If it happens, it happens. Yeah, I don't know how you're going to push that. Because,
the idea of the meetup is like
Yeah, I didn't realize it was that important, and actually I have an old laptop right now, so I need to buy a new one because I need to install my own. I mean, not laptop. Yeah.
Okay.
So I need to make the installation.
It's really easy to install.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, so I mean, I think I got the news only yesterday.
But what do you think? Do you think like this model, this approach works?
Yeah, I think it's great because it's the only way to learn for sure. So, yeah, but maybe you should make it more clear, this part of the beginner's goal.
Oh, yes.
Because I think we got said that, but nobody knows it, so
Maybe like for the meetup.
yeah, everybody is a beginner.
Yeah, we do it in
Either because he mentioned beginners, but then I was not sure if
just
it was programming.
I really enjoyed that.
Should be more clear, right?
Yeah, maybe we should decide first beginner
And at some point we start thinking about doing that. They came in with this idea like to do this
Or like a small questionnaire, like the beginners trying to solve, to answer the questions like what's the percentage of male and female?
Because I was working with some
the
data set.
Analyzing data.
Yeah.
But I guess they're already. No, you can
Okay.
Yeah, they didn't have to pay.
No, I don't know. Maybe we could prepare some.
Yeah, I think it's a very good idea.
And a lot of people
Give some
Yeah.
where to start and what kind of stuff.
Ah, yes, yeah. Yes.
Okay. This is like whatever. It's really.
So what's your name?
The idea is to bring people together.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't get in the description that it was about solving the problems during the meetup. It was not made clear in the beginning.
Yeah, we for the first one, we wanted to give an introduction to what we want to do.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah, so
But that was also like
still
what I wanted, but this kind of
but they were honest.
decided
They
it's
said,
like,
yeah,
okay, let's
Yeah.
really put people working
We'll have a
together.
No, but it's good. It's just I was not. It was yesterday. It was sent yesterday, right? The message.
Yeah.
Okay, so I didn't miss it. So you work at Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you do?
something you've been using for free already. Now you
So
have to
it's
pay.
so you have financial knowledge or
Yeah. And so mainly my background is finance, and I started like using Python not long ago, like 6 months ago. And it really helped
Okay,
me.
so I'll be in contact.
I'm not an expert, but at least I was able to, using my new job, to apply some of the stuff that I learned. And I can see like how powerful it is.
Now I want to try
but
three.
you also need your finance background.
Yeah.
You're using it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I basically what I see so far is that we have like a procedure, like a report that we built in Excel with a lot of sources and a lot of like data, manipulating, filter stuff, sending to another spreadsheet. So I managed to do that.
Okay.
80% of the report is done in Python, as long as I download the data and I put it into space. And then the program runs and it gets the output. And then I just need to tweak it a little bit back in spreadsheets in Excel. But at least it's a lot of time saved and less error.
But do you use machine learning?
No, I don't use it.
Because I guess that's one of the reasons why Python is so popular. It's because it's machine learning library.
Yeah, yes,
Yeah. So in the end, you don't use this Python.
not
So what's the main reason for? I mean, why would you use Python or not? Or what you're doing right now with Python, you cannot do it with R?
I could.
You could.
I just feel more comfortable with Python. I know a little bit of R.
But there's no reason why you use Python.
Well, that's one thing that I think for this meetup, I started using the name Python, but actually people can use R, and I think we'll change the name instead of being Python. We'll put like Chicago.
Okay, so the idea is more data analysis.
Yeah.
Okay.
But since the people joined, the name was Python, they joined.
Okay. So do you like
Yeah. But it feels like I want to do more with what I know.
Yeah.
So I always try to implement this stuff. Sometimes it's not possible.
But do you have computer science background?
A lot of what I do. It's good that I had like the foundation from this book, but it's a lot of Googling and searching for stuff.
And there are data scientists for doing all the data.
Not no.
And from what I heard in the finance sector,
I have no experience.
yeah, I saw that. But he told me I should be really good at Excel if I apply. They're very demanding about Excel. Yeah, but I was a bit surprised. Because I mean, as you say, you can learn this, and yeah, they expect you to be an expert in apply. But yeah, apparently they're doing a lot of data. I think it's one of the few.
Some companies, more and more companies, not that they have like a they design this.
Yeah, but I see there are also keyboard
Oui, on a switché à Guy en 2014.
I have a bachelor in mathematics.
That's not what you want.
Sorry?
That's what you want.
Yeah, and I can program, but the thing is, so now I have a job, I'm working as a but yeah, when I was looking for a job, the problem was always about working on dirty data. That was always a question. Can you clean data? Have you worked on dirty data? And unfortunately, during my PhD, I was working on standard data sets that we use in research. So they're like So that's a big problem actually.
Hi guys. I played a little bit with the data, and I want you just to share what I have done in the last 10 minutes. So, so in the tutorial that is actually in Kaggle, there is these functions that actually simplify the ages. So selecting from -1 to 0, which means that we don't know the age of the guy. And then we have a baby who is actually between 0 and 5, between 5 and 12 is a child, between 12 and 18 is a teenager, etc., etc., etc. So we have until senior. So we classify the data that way. And then you simplify the cabins, which another thing as well that we have done here is that if there is a data which is missing, we'll just replace it in the case of the age by -0.5. I mean, just arbitrary here. And then for the cabin, if the cabin is missing, we'll just replace it by n, etc., etc. We did as well the same for the fares. We divide them in different categories: the first quantile, the second, the third, etc. So tranches of prices. And the names as well have been replaced. So, I mean, you can look in more details about that. You apply those functions and you got a very nice, let's say, skimmed data. So those that are already, I mean, ready for further analysis, let's say. So, so here you have the age, depending on the, I mean, the category. You have the senior, adult, teenager, etc., etc. And then you have here the percentage of survival. And the colors represent male or female. So, as I said before, so if you are a teenager, I mean, less than a teenager, so if you are a baby, a child, or a teenager, you are more likely to survive. So if you are a baby, more than 70% of the babies survived, which is a good thing. And then the child. So unfortunately for I mean, they have like only 30%. And then for the teenagers, only female survived, most of them.
What is that thing that the captain should say, like babies and...
Yes, I mean, yes, babies first, and then the guys.
I wonder if that's true.
I mean, it's true. The data tells you that the men died, and most of the females survived. I'm not sure that this will happen nowadays.
So, you know, children was anything under 12. If you were 13, you were able to go off to war and be a man and
yeah, exactly. I mean, this actually represents quite good how, I mean, the process of escaping from the disaster worked, and most of the women survived, which is a good thing. And then, so here look into the cabins, different cabins. I don't know if there is any correlation here, but it doesn't really matter. So the prices, so more, I mean, more you increase the price, more you are willing to survive. I mean, there is like a trend here. If you pay more your ticket, you are going to survive. I mean, you have 30% chance to survive. And then what I have done is to try to build a model to predict if somebody will die or survive. So for that, I look directly to scikit-learn. So in scikit-learn, you have a lot of different tools. For example, how to estimate the accuracy, which is actually will be our metric for the end. And we have a bunch of tools, like for example, how to split your data into train and test. Have also some cross-validation, I'm not really mentioning now. And then another thing that you can look in detail later on is to encode the features. So we have some features that are just strings. So for example, for the range of ages like child, unknown, and stuff like that, those are strings. We cannot really use them to build a model, mathematical model. So we need to encode those information into numbers. When you put them into numbers, they are easy to handle. So this is what the function here does. So there is, everything is in pre-processing in scikit-learn, and you can find out everything there. So once you have done that, you have just numbers. And machine learning tools like numbers. So you can do that. And then what I have done is trying to select only the features. So like what characterize our data. So in here, the features are everything except if it's survived or the passenger ID, because the passenger ID doesn't really matter, just an ID. And then we have the target. So this is everything else that we have in the class. For example, we have the class, sex, age, etc., are features to build our model. So we'll use that to predict the target, and the target here is the survival. So we want to know if somebody, given those criteria here, will be able to survive or will perish on the disaster. So here I was just looking to the data. So what I have done is just look for some random classifiers. So you have logistic regression, which is actually one of the bases of the classification. You have random forest classifier, which is a very nice classifier. I would recommend it. I mean, it's simple enough. It's nice. It's a nice classifier. I didn't say powerful. Nice. You have k-neighbor classifier, decision tree classifier. This is a very basic one, so we didn't take the boosted version of it, but you can find out in scikit-learn in the ensemble method. And then I just define whatever with whatever parameters they have, and I train them. I mean, we define a classifier, so here logistic regression, k-neighbor classifier, decision tree, and then you train. So you have the features, the target. Features, target, but I mean, it's really easy and straightforward. And then I imported my accuracy, so to measure the accuracy. So scikit-learn as well provide us with those tools, which is a good thing. And then I make a prediction for the linear logistic regression, and I measure the accuracy. And the accuracy is like 79%, it's more 80% accurate. So this model is quite accurate actually, it's 80%. So I will be able to predict if someone will survive in this disaster with 80% accuracy. And then the this one. Sorry? 8 years. Yeah. Thanks. This one actually is less powerful than this one. As you can see, it's like only 64%. And this one is 77%, the decision tree. Actually, surprisingly doing quite well. And I was about to do the random forest, but I guess you can just find to do the same. And if we want to do the random forest, we have just to define random forest. So what I will be doing is just pick up the random forest name, if I'm able to do so. Yeah. And then put it in here, define, yeah, random forest. I'm not optimizing the parameters. I define that, fit, train, so those are the features, and the target. And then I train. The train is already done, so we'll just take advantage of those lines, put them here, look at this, and here. Then I will be able to make a prediction, and actually it's 82% prediction. Actually, this one is doing quite well comparing to the others. So, using those models, we are already able to predict if somebody will survive in this disaster. So you can tune the parameters after that. So this is one of the things that a data analyst is doing maybe on a daily basis, is to tune all those algorithms that we have here, to tune those parameters. For example, for the random forest, is to train the number of where are they? The number of estimators. Where are they? The number of estimators. For the moment, I have just 10, which is not that big. So if I decide to do, let's say, how much? 100. And then I train that again. Takes a little bit longer, but I increase the accuracy. Now it's 83%. So you can also tune another parameter, which is, for example, the max depth. And let's say we put a max depth. So this is the depth, the complexity of your model. Let's say 10 or something. I didn't increase that much, so this one doesn't really matter. So, I mean, this is an example. So now you can build your prediction and make a submission. I will talk a little bit later about that. Maybe I will let you go that far, make a prediction, and I will show you how to do a submission on the topic. Yeah.
So what we see here is actually the steps that Nissi was talking about beforehand. The very start, we identified what the problem was. We then processed the data, and then we've gone through to the analyst part. Now, so working at CERN, we use classifiers quite a lot, but they're basically always these decision tree classifiers. So one of the goals of a meetup like this, in my perspective, is going along to a session, having a data set which I know makes sense. There is a good metric that you can test on. But I can play around with random forests. I can work out what sort of parameters there are, how these optimize. I can also say, okay, I know how to use scikit-learn. I want to try a new tool. I want to put this into Ceres and use some really deep learning stuff, or use this sort of stuff. So then there are other people there, and you can work together towards a common goal. And you know, if you've forgotten to process your data and change some of your nans into or spaces into not applicable, so you've forgotten to change things into numbers, there are other people that can help you do this, and then you're actually there getting to know another part of the code, being able to develop things and actually have fun with the things that usually is just a task that you get given at work every day. So, yeah.
Without getting too technical on the physics, why are you using only decision classifier?
No, I'm not really only using classifiers, but this is like, let's say, the most used one. Because they are easy, and I mean, without going into details, because of the structure and how the algorithm is built, we can actually understand what is going on, and we can make sense of the data and the prediction that is made out of it.
It's also fairly robust to correlations between systematics at the end, which is a feature of most ensemble classifiers, but this really takes effect when you've got, say, 300 parameters which all affect your score at the end. If they're then all correlated with the parameter, then yeah, you might get a better sensitivity, but you're less sure about it. So.
Yeah.
That's very, very technical. We can talk about this quite a lot.
Yeah, just to clarify, systematics are like errors that we get from the measurements. For example, when we have collisions of the LHC, we measure everything that is coming out. We have precisions, like the detectors have precisions and stuff like that. We take everything into account, all those errors, and we include them in the final results.
So for instance, in this one, we would take as an error, for instance, if half of the data set didn't have a particular value, which was, say, for instance, which class the ticket was, which we've already seen is a very good way of predicting these things. And all of a sudden, because these people didn't have this information, then there was a large uncertainty on what their value should be. This is then more complicated, and these are issues that are very important in some fields, but don't come up in other fields at all. Sometimes you just want to find the minimum and want to find the best network for these things. But if you talk to people from other fields and do different things, you actually learn a little bit more about these different ways of dealing with other issues like systematics, uncertainties, propagating errors, and things like that. Yeah.
Do you use only one classifier, or doing stacks or something?
So on my experiment, we are 3,500 people. On Yassine's experiment, there are another 3,000 people, 2,500 people, and literally hundreds of analyses, and almost all of them will use a different analysis method. It's just the standard one is a boosted decision tree.
I had another question actually before going. The other meetup I've been to often try to cater for not only like the sharing experience between people that already have a good knowledge of the library, but also for complete beginning. Do you think that should be a place? This meetup should be a place for that as well?
I'll let you answer.
So what I found really good about Meetup is its possibility to go and do something that you love with other people who also do these sorts of things. It's not. I've also been to meetups for this thing, which are more about professional networking, finding people working in different fields, ways that you can use your skills in ways that you didn't think were possible before, but no hands-on things at all. Equally, there are lessons and things that you can take, and I've seen a lot of meetups going around where they advertise basically classes that they're offering. It was not my intention to have this as being like a beginner's tutorial for these sorts of things, especially since there are so many excellent online resources. But you know, also with situations like this, going through a work, for example, with other people, where you have the tools to run everything, and then you're just playing with numbers and trying to understand why adding another 10 layers into your tree gives you 2% extra accuracy is a pretty good way of learning. So I'm not sure we want to dedicate special time to educating the general populace in data analysis, but yeah, it's definitely something we can think about doing in the future if there is a great need for it. So.
Well, I think there are actually so much need that there is also space for meetups that are dedicated to advanced things, and but it's just good to know what you want to target.
So actually, for today, I was explaining a little bit how the data is working and so on, and so this is just actually for the beginning. Maybe we could have that in the future. So the formats that we were thinking of is just sitting around and working together. So next time I won't be here, but I will be there. I will be trying to, to share my experience and, get also other experiences and learn something from somebody else and stuff like that. And then at the end, if someone has something interesting, found out something interesting on the data, he can go on the stage and present it. Like, actually, have looked at those data, how to classify cats and dogs. And actually, I found that this feature allows me to discriminate between cats and dogs. So it's something like that. This could be an interesting feature. And somebody else will say, actually, I found that if you use this particular algorithm for this particular problem, it works quite better than the other one, which is maybe works in most of the cases. So this kind of things. So if you have a finding at the end, you can share it with everybody else. You can share it with your neighbors on the table, and after that, we just go and have a drink and talk about it. We'll talk about something else.
Do you think we could work on data which were not analyzed before, like something original, or really see something
From the show.
something, you know?
Yeah, this is definitely an option. So the Kaggle data sets are very nice because they're set out, and for some of these tutorial ones, yeah, they've been analyzed literally millions of times. But some of the new ones are fairly new. We actually, a couple of years ago, I was involved in a procedure where we put a Higgs data set from the Atlas experiment onto Kaggle. I was explaining this earlier. It's because this was in association with a couple of there we are. And yeah, the top, the person who came the lead and the person who came third were both hired by DeepMind, Google DeepMind in London. Yeah, this was very useful for us because we went through and we worked out more about the importance of cross-validating our data sets, being able to train on 7 different data sets or something, do the same thing, and then merge the outputs in the right way. And this was very useful. And there are also similar prospects for doing this. Like we have issues like in the future we're going to upgrade the machines such that some of the tasks are more difficult, and we can release data and say, look, this is a problem that we deal with, which in other fields is fairly trivial and very useful, very easy for them to do, and they have fairly standard ways of dealing with it. This is something that we can fairly easily get a hold of and explain what the problem is, and then have a hackathon where we go through this one problem and showcase what we can do. And just equally, we can contact any number of other companies working in data science and say, hey, look, we have a room full of 30 data scientists that want to play with something fun. What data can you give us? So.
Yeah, I think that part of approaching companies is really something we can explore. I think it will be in both interests to do that.
Yes.
It's work for free, so
yeah.
I can't imagine many people saying no. What's the timetable for the rest of the evening?
So I guess
yeah.
I need to finish. I try to make a submission.
Okay.
Okay, there's the.
Now I should specify here that submissions to Kaggle, because there is money involved and there is creative property involved and things like this, there are particular legal issues with submitting from a group like this. So you kind of turn around and say, oh, hey, look, 30 of us worked on this one code, now I'm going to submit it and get 1.5 million from the TSA. But, you know, generally sitting down and discussing these sorts of issues is not a problem, just so long as, you know, keep this in mind.
Yeah, for those I'm talking about those, there will be more money, so we try to avoid those.
Do you really think we can kind of create an algorithm that will earn money?
Okay,
Sorry?
Do you think we can create an algorithm here that will earn money?
Well, just to avoid that, avoid having like, instead of having like an atmosphere of creativity and...
well, I think maybe this kind of push and sort of creativity where we kind of participate when we kind of...
you can do it outside.
So I was explaining earlier that actually most of the value of these things on Kaggle is not so much the prospect of winning, but the fact that then you can turn around to an employer and say, hey, look, I did this project, I understand how this works, and this was my submission, this is how I rank it, all data scientists in the world. This sort of thing. So I mentioned with that Higgs one, the first person and the third person were employed. And this is good. The first person did best, and the third person explained it best.
It's a marketplace.
So going to things like this and being able to go through and explain to a group, this is why I chose this algorithm and this is why I chose it like this. This is also very valuable rather than very...
Well, you're not allowing.
Oh, I know.
Well, not NDAs, no. The data has to be open. You have to be able to sell the data, right? There has to be data that you can sell. You have to assign a license to it. And usually it's a pretty open license.
Yeah, but basically anyone can get it, but you were more interested in already part of it.
Well, process you can sell whatever you want, so you can sell messy data, but it's unbiased. So if you clean it up, you send it all over to us, nice data sets, that's probably going to be fairly valuable to someone if they're interested. You don't have personal data. It's a names and addresses and pretty Eventually, probably could be reversed, yes.
That was the best thing. I think now the area that I want to see, how this is exactly what I
University and
Yeah, but then there's other companies. There are companies like WorkForce that have a lot of they've never experienced but they can
For the next time, we'll do also show things there.
Yeah, you know some companies that practice that future.
Yes. Yeah. So if they saw something somebody had stood outside the big building, something, they made the data set, how many guys versus how many people go in and buy that. Maybe you get that, you can sell that data. And maybe that's something that's interesting. That's what I'm making right now. I'm going to release it.
La création de données avant d'avoir le CSV. La base de données. En général, pour moi, c'est un truc que je sais pas, quand tu parlais d'estimation de l'hôtel, ça veut dire que c'est un outil qui va venir de la base de données. C'est vraiment des trucs. Pour ça, réussir à les extraire, faire l'effort
Actually, myself would like to learn a little bit
caring about, all the different nutrition factors that dogs. So I have so maybe if you want to combine those different pieces and figure out whatever, how different food whatever. Exactly. So,
guys, just to finish with the submission, as I said in the beginning. So the best model that I got so far is this random forest with these parameters here. So what I did is just save it as a CSV file, as you can see here using, you can find out online, it's very simple. You save the submission file, you go into Kaggle competition, for instance this tutorial, and what I do is like submit the prediction. So I go here, and I select where my data sets are, and I believe they are somewhere.
They finished, they got their answer, and now they can sell this survey data, which costs them a lot of money to do, but they don't need it anymore. And others who really need survey data, like the questions and the responses. And a lot of times it's
happens often with data sets.
taken the survey, I have no idea how to do that.
Where is it?
They could also do that. And then why?
Yeah, obviously, this command didn't work.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's in my second phase. But I want to put up the data and do that. So talk about it and say, well, if I had this data, then somebody said, well, I can go out and script that.
Found it.
So, that's another thing that I want.
Yes, so I have my submission file in here. So what I could do is just go in this web page, drag this into here. He said like 100% complete, make the submission, and wait for the evaluation. And at some point, you will say something like
I was originally in life sciences.
error.
And that was about 20 years ago.
In one line, perhaps.
And went totally into informatics and
Like hundreds.
20 years ago I was making relations.
Let's do that. Let's do it again.
Organize people's data. And just from there, I progressed into doing more. And 20 years ago I also did SPM in C. Yeah. C, and there was, and now you buy that, you buy, download a free package with an SPM, right?
Quite bad.
So that I did a long time ago.
Because they need to have a concentrated and
Of course. I mean, mine's blown away a long time ago, but that's 20 years ago. That's
because you actually, if you know how to make one, you know how to tune this.
yeah. So, but so that's where I started, and then I've done since then. Now I realize, okay, maybe I could make this company because this is a real need that I still have. That's what I think. That's what I think. You know, you never know. This is the first time I've been a real guy to start the company. I've been in other small companies before, but I've never been able to start something. This is a new step. Yeah, that, I remember that was stressful. This is a little bit more.
Yeah, because this is money.
Yeah, it's real money. It's your own real money that you stuck into this thing. Well, whatever. It's not that much money is right now as much as just me spending all my time. It's money.
Yeah, sure.
Because I'm not. Yeah, exactly. So, me and one other person, we're doing it together. So, eventually, what we'd like to do, I mean, if it works, so I want to roll it out and start seeing if it works. If it starts working, then I'll really build up the company and really have real more data science. Because, of course, okay, we can do the simple recommendation engines, I've done a few already, but, you know, it would be a nice thing to do the marketing with recommendations. Like, if you bought this data set, you know, maybe you like this data set. Exactly. So this is where I'm concentrating my effort. And then the idea is to build it. If it works, build it into a real company with more real employees, not me just me and my partner. The other guy is doing. My other guy works at I work based here, but he's in Cyprus. We worked together a long time in the past. So he said, okay, I had this idea, and I told him about it. He goes, okay, I'll do it. Because just on my own, I couldn't do it all. So we're good friends, and he's going to do it. Very close, just for a while, at least for a year. If it starts taking off, then I'll build it. Yeah, I don't need much more experience. I'm old. But, you know, I realize it's something that I think is really important. So I think
US, for example, which one?
But I have a lot. I've learned already a lot, so I hope that when I do this, it makes it more important. But I think it's a real need. I really think that I talk to a lot of people, or at least a certain type of people. It's a real need that every time I talk about how it takes 80% of your time to clean up the data. I go, well, you're not getting money for that 80%. Why don't you get money for that 80%? And if there's people who are willing to do that 80% for other somebody else, who's supposed to do the 20%, there's a big market there. Because anyone who offers 80% of their work can spend other time that they want to.
Ouais, non, je sais, c'est beaucoup de gens qui disent que c'est génial.
I went here. Doesn't bother me. It's still right. Okay, maybe you're not seeing the answer, but you're still doing something important. No, I mean, yeah, it's still a like just going to see have to write the little scrapers to scrape all the data, and each data on each McDonald's is a different.
Yeah, je sais, mais il y en a qui sont très inconfortables avec ça. Ouais, c'est genre.
But no, and you have to reformat it, and you have to do this.
Prévois mes vacances.
Sinon,
ils ne peuvent pas dormir, quoi.
And I'm not just, I don't want to be the one that collects the money.
C'est d'autres valeurs.
Hires the people and then gets them to get jobs. Like everybody can do that. So everybody should make money for what they do.
Je pense que tu peux faire un classifier avec des générations.
Yeah.
Avec des valeurs différentes.
So my site, you can be a seller of data different. I take a commission.
Là, on est une dizaine.
But you can resell that data as many times as you want, so you're making money. It's not a bad business for somebody else. Likes to
Les parents aussi, on peut des prototypes.
has ideas about good data that you should sell. And you could also sell your results if you did data science on it and you want to provide certain sample statistics on your data set. Why not do that too? I mean,
Alors, dans le très long terme, on ira dans le B2C. Ça va vite, hein. 4-5 ans, chaque itération du hardware, c'est un
and don't want to go in their own. If they want to work on their own, because I think a lot of people like us are happy to work on our own. I don't know.
Ouais, nous on a des concurrents à Toronto qui ont 25 millions. C'est une mais c'est pas une.
Well, I mean, even that. So you
Le
can
truc
think,
qui est particulier, c'est que
you probably, if you're building a new kind of tool, you need data sets to practice.
Et donc,
Alors,
ça c'est
And
le.
why not? You know, they're not.
Ouais, on est passé à la pièce.
Guys, I just succeeded submitting my prediction into Kaggle, and I'm happy to say that I'm this number in the classification. I'm number 8,558 in this position. So my model is not that good compared to others. And if you look to the leadership, actually, I mean, one of the first has already won, so like 100% accuracy. So with this data set, you can push your model to the edges.
We just found the records from the diet who was alive and just manually adjusted all this.
Okay, so this is cheating. So I mean, this is a very nice tutorial to play with yourself.
skeleton cat, but we
Do
are
that. So if you have any other completion, you make your prediction. You go here, you submit the data, save it. Here now, just put your documents here and make the prediction using what I have done here. Just putting into my lesson rating what is required inside the submission and sharing. Put that in my submission, so CSV or whatever, and then put it into and you are done. So if you are looking at me, it could be from the first three, you can get some money.
This is the profile evaluation. Came up with the idea.
Yes, go ahead.
Can you share your notebook on the meetup?
Yes, sure. I will put it on the meetup.
Yeah, because just like the few lines you're using are useful to.
I mean, it's most of it I took it directly from here.
Yeah,
Like I was teaching a little bit. Here you have it. I mean, you can put the link to this one.
The link would be good, yeah.
Their whole building.
We also have a Slack channel.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, we have a Slack channel. We share the information on the end. Yeah, and there actually we can even talk and mute up.
Yeah.
We can even decide earlier what information we want to have.
Well, that's what the point is.
That's it, guys. I guess we can have it for great.
So in the CSV it's predictions.
I'll give myself
If you want to do actually my prediction, like to know. Okay, do that.
The revenue streams that you just start a tiny extra
The result of his model. Survive, die, survive, die, survive, die, survive.
But it's very good.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Yes.
So website's not approved yet, but let me write down. Well, maybe so it's just a prediction.
Just a prediction. So what they have inside the website is they have the true
I have to
information.
change it because I'm not a designer.
But you have the training and test set, but there's other hidden.
Yeah, there is a hidden one. So otherwise you cannot really estimate the accuracy.
They have it.
I mean, a few people went to the web and looked for the passages, they found this information somewhere else than Kaggle.
The
Then
com is a
put it by
little
hand.
more
This is what you were saying
expensive.
before. So it's like cheating.
The com is like 1,000 euros.
That they
Yes, this one is.
No, it doesn't. At the
They
end,
don't? Well, someone bought
at
it.
the end,
and
what
they
matters is the prediction.
Yeah, but the problem is depending on
Right.
your
But you want to connect to me, but connect. Okay.
Yes, actually.
Yeah, that will remind me to go there.
Just because it's very
You can see that my
so it's not
score
a
is 73% in this data set, in this test data.
This stage you will probably
It's good to do.
Yeah, but
Which means actually I'm overfitting this data set. So this is another problem. I wasn't really dealing with it today.
Yeah, no, it's true.
This is another problem. It's like your model is learning more
Yeah,
data.
anyway,
It's dependent
I
on
will,
data.
yeah.
So at
But
the end,
actually, what I'll do
the model that you're using, as long as it's predicting as well the
yeah, I'm gonna do that.
you cannot
Yes,
know
just
if
a lot
it's
to do.
predicting if you're only checking
Is that
your
Paul?
model on one.
That's Paul. Oh, that's my son.
Oh, this is
I know
why.
Paul. You know Paul?
no, but it's because they are connected to
Yes.
where it's supposed to be.
But this is from you.
So to check if you're
So these are people you made.
Yes, it's making
Yeah.
because we are connected mutual.
Yes,
I
yes.
can't remember who this really is.
Yeah.
But someone down there
Yeah, yeah.
these are some people from
Yeah, the name looks.
this particular band
These are
it's just like
because we have really many connections in common.
65.
IT,
like 20%.
many of us are just relocating.
Everything with data.
No, I didn't.
This is for the solution.
Actually, I know a gal too. It's like Croatian. She works at the Red Cross.
There are many areas. You only want to write the best organizations to have one when you my friends are here for many children. The UN, one of the agencies, UN also. UN has many, we learn many
But I also have another friend, a really good friend, who's Slovenian, and has a house in Croatia.
We're very smart. We're doing cross-pollination.
You're talking about decision trees.
Yes, yes, yeah. It's, there's a new, I think there's a new EasyJet flight that goes to that airport that's right near. No, it's like, it starts with the Odin or Eden?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll let you close it.
Well, it's a small island.
Hey, guys, so that's all for today.
No.
Thank you everyone for coming.
You know, there's, I think it's Zadar is the airport.
If you have any questions, we'll appreciate if you give us your feedback in the
Yes,
meetup platform
yes.
so that we can improve for the next meetup. I think the next one will be held around January. I already discussed with Lucas. Middle of January will be here. So you know, let's try. The format will be similar to what we've done now. So please bring your laptops and possibly with a Jupyter notebook installed, so ready to work on the dates.
I think maybe what we'll do is we'll send out a poll before the next one of which challenge we're actually going to look at, such that people can already make sure that they can read in the data set, and then we can split off into groups on who wants to do things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
Okay. Well, it was nice meeting you.
Yeah. There is also some requests about using R language. So there will be R in the future if you want to do your analysis using R. This will be possible. So you just bring your skills, your knowledge about R, and share it with us. I will be quite interested in learning a little bit of R.
Just as a show of hands, would anybody be interested in doing both Python and R? Is anybody interested in doing our things. Okay, cool. There is some interest.
Yeah, another thing as well is just to set up, to have the right setup for the next meetup. We are going to put some links about different tutorials on how to set up the Jupyter, how to install all those tools. Like that, in the next meetup, we will have everything ready, and you will be ready for analysis. Another point as well is we will have a Slack chat in the future. We will put more the information on the meetup. Like that, we can discuss if you have any issue and you want to have very quick feedback. I mean, people can talk, and that's it. That's it. Okay, thanks guys for coming.
Their lunch, yeah, okay.